Well, good morning. It's Buddha's in your landfill or your moment of Zen. And I may be a little early, but a few minutes, but ready to go. And let's talk about the cup. I know we yesterday we left off with this idea of the cup. The way to, that at least I've discovered, the way to reach understanding and personal realization of your own wholeness is through a good metaphor. So with a good metaphor, like Archimedes, you can lift your whole world. It gives you a handle, right? A metaphor is a handle, so you can drink truth from it. You see, but without the metaphor, the mind just has nothing to hold on to, has nothing to bring it all together. So we're working with a metaphor of the cup. And yesterday, we were looking at the cup as an inside and an outside. And the inside is the subject, me or I, and the outside is the objective world I experience. And this is like a Russian nesting doll. There's the idea of the micro world, the inside world, and the outside, the inner and the outer, as reflecting each other. And but it's a basic, fundamental metaphor of the inside and the outside being one, yet we experience it as two. And there is a conflict between the two, because we just want the inside, which is me, to be filled with good stuff and not the bad stuff. Just sweet, no bitter. Just hot, no cold. Just pleasure, no pain. And so that division is a crack or a wound in the cup. So we're going to look at that today and dig in and drink a little bit more. This a friend of mine. Can you see this? A friend of mine gave me this. It's called the Bad Day mug, the Bad Day cup, and it's bent. And she had an interesting experience. She wanted a potter, a friend of hers, to make her some. And the potter had a really difficult time intentionally making a bad cup, because her whole art was making a perfect cup. And it was very difficult to intentionally make a bad cup, to accept the bad cup. Isn't that interesting? So this idea that the cup, now we're looking at the cup as our consciousness, and our human consciousness is divided, and there is a rub with the world. People rub us the wrong way. The situation, my body rubs me the wrong way. It's not supposed to be sick, it's supposed to be well. The world is supposed to be a perfect cup, but it's always got a bent, it's got a flaw in it, a crack in it. Something's wrong with it, you see. Or when I drink something, it's supposed to be perfect, but it could be a little bit, this is that. You know, this whole idea that the world could be better than it is. So we're constantly like a potter. God is a potter, trying to make a perfect world, but the clay, the process, never comes out right. Isn't that an interesting idea? That this idea of God, now this is a Western archetype or a Western idea of God. The East doesn't have this idea. But the Western idea of God comes out of the Judeo-Christian way, right out of Genesis, is that God is like a potter who makes the world out of this stuff, clay or stuff. He makes the world, he makes man, he blows life into man, animates him, and then Adam names the world. And he says, okay, I can name the world. So that's a cup. You see? And there's a good cup and a bad cup. This has got a bend in it, so this is a bad cup. Throw it away, make a good cup. So this whole idea then of God as a potter, and man is made in the image of God. So we kind of look at ourselves in this image of making stuff, good stuff, out of this clay called nature. So we're constantly making stuff better, we think, because we constantly keep finding cracks and imperfections in what we just made. So anyway, but the idea here that we're working with is that in our consciousness, there is a fundamental rub between me as subject, me as a separate sense of I, me as somebody, the something, against the world as an object, which is you, the things, the history, but basically it's my experience of the world. See, we don't know the world, an object. I don't know this object as it is. All I really know is what I experience of this, what my senses tell me. So I got a color, I got a feeling. There's no smell unless there was something in it. I can hear it, you see. I can feel it. And I know what it is because I've already named it. If it were still clay and I squeezed it all up, then you would, well, it's clay. But then I would go little boop, 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 and then, oh, it's a cup. It's still the same clay, but now it's a cup, you see. Or if I heated it up and then I squished it up and back into, well, it would be clay again. And then if I really heated the clay would disappear and something else. So it's all this stuff. It's like plastic. We just keep getting different things, and we just know the name and the qualities, but we don't know the stuff, you see. But the stuff rubs me, even though what I know is my own experience. So what we're really looking at here is that I am rubbed by my own experience, my feelings, because what I'm experiencing does not fit what I think it should be. So there's the rub between me as a feeling, consciousness, and the world as object, which doesn't fit my expectations of what it should be. And that's a rub because the inside and the outside of the cup are separated. So Zen points out, as a fact that we have to discover, it's not something that we learn, we have to discover this, is the truth of Buddhism and Zen is not something to be learned, but to be discovered. So this is pointed out so we can discover that the rub between me and the outside world, or me and my experience of the world, is painful because I have separated the cup. You see, the cup is one cup. And if I separate the me inside from the outside, that gap of separation, the degree of which is the degree of my suffering with the world. So the greater the separation between my sense of me and the outside world as a bad cup, the greater that separation, the greater my suffering. Because the cup is really one. And I have separated the one into two, and I maintain that separation because I'm fighting it. I'm trying to make the cup perfect. Where? In the future. You see what happens? Time enters in here. I separate myself from my experience of the world because the world is not meeting my expectations. It's got a bent in it, you see. It shouldn't be that way. It should be perfect. And so then I am irritated, annoyed, or angry, or disappointed with that object, person, thing, situation, cup. But I know it should be one. I know there is a whole cup, you see, but I'm not experiencing it. I'm experiencing a bad cup. So what do is that we project our imagination, the whole cup, the perfect cup, into the future. So it'll be better when I get to California, or I get rid of this person, or fix this, or get it fixed, or whatever. So the whole cup that I know exists, which is unity with the world, and which is basically unity with my own consciousness, when my consciousness will become one cup in the future. So that is our life. We're chasing our one cup in the future because we can't find it now. I can't find the whole cup now, so it's put in the future. And this is what runs our economy. And there's nothing wrong with this. This is just the way it runs. But we need to understand it. Or we're like the donkey chasing the carrot, you see. So I'm always chasing future. I'm never satisfied. And finally, I just burn out and die. In Buddhism, Buddha calls this the laws of old age, sickness, and death. As long as you are living in a cracked cup, believing that you can get a perfect cup in the future, you are just being governed by the laws of death, old age, sickness, and death. Your cup is going to die. You'll never know a whole cup. You'll die a broken cup. Because we don't believe, our whole worldview, our whole understanding of the world in the West is looking for the whole cup in the future instead of now. So this is the crack that won't heal. And, I've always been, my whole life has really been trying to integrate and bring together Eastern and Western understanding, which is basically yoga and Buddhism in the East and Christianity in the West, So this has been my personal quest, this understanding and bringing together the inside of the cup, which would be the religion I was born into, the Christian tradition, and the outside of the cup, which became for me the yoga and Buddhism of the East. How do I make it one cup, you see? So I'm constantly integrating these two views and finding one cup, you see. And this is the Holy Grail. One cup, I think. This, to me, the Holy Grail is that realization that your cup is whole. And when your cup is whole, you see, the pain of the cup, the crack that won't heal, is healed. And you're no longer chasing your life in the future. You're living life as it is now, which is really where the only place life is, which is now. So this crack that won't heal is also the wound in Jesus that won't heal. The lance wound in the cross, hanging from the cross, the lance wound. This is the idea of the wound, or the wound that won't heal, and it's in the mythology of the Arthurian romances with the Fisher King, who has a lance wound that won't heal, and it is the Holy Grail, Sir Percival, the Holy Grail, the knight who can find the Holy Grail can heal the wound of the Fisher King. This was a movie, I think, with, can't think of his name, but anyway, this is this idea of, well, it was in Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. They were looking for the Holy Grail, and when they left, Indiana's father, somebody said, "What did you get?" And he said, "Enlightenment." So they were, the Holy Grail was enlightenment, and enlightenment or realization heals the crack in the cup. And as you notice, a bent cup is a perfectly good cup. So we basically discover that the imperfection is our perfection. Instead of imperfection being something that we have to fix, we embrace the imperfection. You see, we embrace the wound. We accept the suffering. We accept the wound, and that becomes alchemy. Now, see how all these things for alchemy was these signs of the Middle Ages, where you used base metal and turned it into gold. Well, that too is a metaphor. So if your cup is bent and you're not perfect, and your world is not perfect, and it's full of wounds and pains and everything, the alchemy is that you embrace the imperfection, and when you accept it, instead of voiding it and projecting it, you perform a alchemy act of turning your suffering into gold, or now. You see, so the gold is life now, and the suffering is living in life future. The gold is in the future, but the real gold of life is now. So in order to stop living in the future and living now, we have to heal or see that we are separating ourself from ourself, and that is the cause of our suffering. So the seeing that I am one cup, which means embracing my imperfections, creates one cup, one consciousness, and the pain of being separated from myself goes. Because the pain was caused by my refusal to accept myself. You see? The problem with the West is that everything is our view, not the problem with the West, but I mean the limitations of our view of the world is that the cause of my problems and my suffering is external. The view from the East is that the cause is the way you perceive the world. So if you change the way you perceive, and the world is you, you are the world, all right? That's the other one. You are the inside and the outside of the cup. You're the whole cup. So I'm the world and the world is me. When we look from that view, we begin to see the true cause of our pain with the world. The world is not the cause of my pain. That means I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim of the world, unless I perceive myself as a victim, and I perceive myself as a victim when I see the world as be the cause of my pain. So the whole thing, you see, just creates this whole consciousness or mind that is split into two contradictory halves that cannot find unity. So the whole point of my talks and the whole point of my discovery and my work with this basically is an ongoing, continuing healing of the crack in the cup, so that when I discover a new crack, I immediately use that crack as a something to work with and restore healing. So it's a constant using of new cracks, new sufferings, new annoyances as the base metal to rediscover the gold of living in the present moment. So let's stay with this Zen moment today, and I'll see you this evening at Martini time.